Barry is one of the gateways to the new Wales. After the building of the docks, people came to Barry from all over the world, settling here, staying here temporarily as sailors and seamen and railway and other workers. But in no place was this more true, a true reflection of Barry, than in Travers Street, which was just off of Thompson Street. And speaking from personal knowledge, my grandfather, who came to Barry in 1903 from Barbados as a seaman, his first place he stayed was in Thompson Street in a boarding house, which I believe was the one owned by the Defoe family. This relatively short presentation just gives you an idea. There were 46 houses in Travers Street, and every flag that you see on this presentation represents at least one person who was in Thompson Street on the night of the census in 1911, which would have been the last census before the war, and we're talking, I guess, March 1911, end of March. So, as you look at the flags, two things to consider. One, in 1911, most of the countries which were in the former Commonwealth, as we now know it, and many other common colonial countries, such as Cape Verde, which was Portuguese colonies, those people never had a vote. So anyone who settled in Wales almost certainly voted before they would have done if they had stayed at home. My grandfather, for example, never voted in Barbados, independent not having been granted to 1965. So, as you look through the flags, consider some of the people. There's a guy named Palmer who's from Australia, who's in 7 Travers Street on the night. And then you've got Charles Carlos, who's a ship's rigger and a seaman, and he was in 13 Travers Street. He was from Cape Verde, as was his bunkmate, who was in the same space, which is Joseph Manuel. But not all of the people there were actually seamen. There were servants from the USA. There were people who were from all over the world who had already settled in Barry. On that night in Barry, there were 7 people who were from Germany, mature men between 36 and 51. 5 of those were seamen, but one of them, Emily Raprick, was 26 years old, and she was a boarding house keeper. Now, 43 years later, if those same Germans were in Barry, and we can't at this stage say if they were or not, they would have been arrested. Because on the day after war was declared in Barry in 1914, the day after the bank holiday, every person, male, born in Germany, was arrested. And they were located, I believe, on Flatholm Island, just off of Barry. So, if any of them stayed, that would have been their fate. One group of people who were not significantly located in Travers Street on that night would have been the Greek community. And that's because their main boarding houses were in 55, 54 and 53 Thompson Street, owned by Constantine Germanakis and by the Liv-Vivris family. So people were tended to be located in the boarding houses which knew them in terms of their family, traditions, etc. And of course you've got food, religion and all the rest of that. And certainly Travis Street was more likely to be a location for people from the Caribbean, for example. There would have been 20 to 30 seamen who were from Ireland, quite a few from Kinsale, which has always had a connection to Barry, who were located in Travis Street on that night, partly because the largest boarding house owner was James McCartin and his wife Mary, who were born in Ireland. Their boarding house had 62 rooms, and when you consider it was certainly more than one person to a room on when the seamen were staying there, that's one heck of a lot of guests and certainly a large economic holding. You'll note there is also not a Spanish flag on display, and that's because the Spanish seamen stayed in 72 Thompson Street. The largest boarding houses for people from the West Indies and Caribbean were 13, 33 and 35 Travis Street, 13 and 35 being owned by Freeman DeVoe, who himself was from Nassau, and he'd bought that previously from Caribbean owners who moved to Canada, but that's another story entirely.